Today we're installing the Bronco Billet Chase Light / third brake light, the LB3M1. This install will take roughly 60 minutes. You won't need any help, and the skill level is medium. Here's a list of tools you'll want to have on hand.
So this is our chase light. This is everything that's going to come in the package. This is our flasher module. This is an option if you want the chase lights to flash, that's available on our website. This is an additional wiring harness that's more universal for if you want to wire this up to something that is not a Bronco or a Jeep. This is an adapter plate for Bronco that changes the bolt pattern from one way to another. There's two different types of Ford Bronco tire carriers. So this adapts our assembly here to any tire carrier that is made by Ford Bronco. We got our chase light, our bracket that holds it up, and this is also a small bracket that allows you to adjust the chase light forward or backward if there's any interference issues with your build. So when you wire the light in with all the harness that comes with it, these 4 LEDs will be your brake lights. They're red and they're really bright. These 2 will be flashing chase lights. These get wired into an auxiliary switch. So if you have upfitter switches, you can wire them into that, or they would just be wired like any normal light would in a Bronco. So when we get into it, we'll show you where that wire ends and give you some suggestions on how to wire it into the cab so you can operate these independently. And this wires into your reverse light. So when you throw the Bronco in reverse, this comes on and lights your way. We're using a 19mm to remove the spare tire. Okay, so on this assembly, there is a spacer bracket here, but the install will be exactly the same whether that's there or not, so we're going to leave that there. The next step is to remove the third brake light and then disconnect the harness, and then we'll go on to wiring and installing the chase light. So we're going to use little non-marring tool. Pull this panel off. These are the things that hold it in. And that gives us access to all the wiring back here. This plug is gonna get unplugged. And for now, we can just unplug everything until we get our new wiring set up. There will also be a coaxial cable instead of this 5-prong if you have that kind of camera, but this one's the 5-prong style. Basically this plastic plug gets pushed out by pushing all the prongs in, and then you just pull it through. This customer had an extender bracket that went along with his tire carrier relocation. We just removed that. This is what your OEM brick tire carrier will look like. And now just get the third brake light out of there because the whole harness is stuck through this hole. We're just gonna take these bolts off to where we can get enough room to pull this through. So now we're gonna just pull this wire through here. A couple little clips in there that hold it in. And then we're actually gonna have to remove it because we gotta get to this camera. This is a T25. And we're just going through this so that we don't have to cut that OEM wire. So we're gonna unplug this light and zip tie it up because that wiring's not going to get used anymore, but we just don't like to cut OEM wiring. There, and then All that just to unplug this little thing, and then we'll zip tie this back up in there so that your camera still works, and then we'll route our LB3 wiring through this plug. So you can see with this tire carrier that this bolt pattern matches up and the whole pattern works just fine. If your holes are reversed, that's when you would use this spacer plate, would go behind and just reverse that pattern so that it's the same as this bracket here. But since we don't have to use that, we can just bolt it on like normal. This is a number 4. And there's a little bit of wiggle room, so make sure that you get it straight. Okay, if you have the OEM hard top, then this light needs to be a little bit further forward than it is in this orientation. If you have our hard top or the soft top, this can be left alone. But we're gonna take out these 4 bolts, bolt the light to this plate, and then bolt the plate to this bracket. So in order to do that, you have to get to the inside of the light. So you're going to remove these bolts and get to the inside so you can hold the nut, remove these 4, and then we'll go from there. This is a number 3, Alan. For Allen bolts this size, and especially since these are stainless, you want to do these by hand at least to start, so that you don't strip them out, get them loose, and then if you want to use a power tool, you can use that. All right, now we're inside the light. You can see our nuts here, and that's what we're going to remove and add this plate in. They are 10mm. This plate can only go one way, so you can see the orientation there. Lines up with the cutout in the light. These don't have to be real tight. They're threading into aluminum, so just snug enough to hold it in place. Now there's a separate hardware pack to bolt this bracket back in place. Alright, and now we're going to loosely bolt that bracket onto our main bracket here. And the reason we leave it loose is because we have to adjust it for the tire size. Okay. And then we'll go into wiring. So now we're removing these 4 little grommets. Usually unscrew them with a screwdriver and get them to pull out, but they are known for kind of being one-time use. So if you break one, just replace it with a Christmas tree clip. That's off, and this is the connector that we're looking to get to.
Okay, we're gonna need access to the side panel in here. Start popping it out. And access back in here. Take our wires and we're gonna route them over. So the wires through here, we can bring them down and we'll connect them to the main LB3 harness. Okay, we've removed this from the vehicle and we're gonna do this outside the vehicle. You could do this while it's on the vehicle, but so that you can see how it's done, we'll do it off the vehicle. So you need to get all of these wires pass through with the factory pass through. Easiest way to do this would be to put a slit here and then reseal that back with weather stripping adhesive. So we're gonna get a razor blade, make a small slit so we can get all of this through there. All right, we're just gonna make this small incision right below, about a 1/2 inch long. Okay, we can remove the factory clip here. We'll start with the two longest wires first. Now the hardest part is going to be getting this connector through here. My recommendation is to remove the pin and slide just the wire through and then reinsert the wire into the connector. Lift this little tab up and the wire pulls out. Make sure as you push it through you don't bend the pin. So just remember, where these two ears are, it's the same side you're going to put the pin back into. Once it's clipped in there, put the retainer back in. Now your connector's back together. So you just need to pull it just past where this webbing is. Okay, then we could put either some weather strip adhesive or RTV in there if you'd like to seal that up a little better. Now we need to install this onto the vehicle so we can route it through. Now we're ready to install. Finally, we're going to make sure that we're connected here with the 4-pin, and then where our ground is, we're going to use a 10mm and just tighten that nut down, secure the ground wire. So with some cable ties, just going to run this wire down. Secure that. And snap that back in. I'm going to go inside with another cable tie and make sure everything stays secure. When you took these apart, there were two connectors. This connector here matches the one that's on the turn off-road harness. This one goes to your backup camera. So we're going to go ahead and plug that one back in. But we're not going to plug this in. We're going to plug in the turn off-road harness. And this is for your brake light. So the next step is to get this wire into the rear side pan. We need to remove this accessory cover. Take your wires and feed them up and over. Pull them through. Okay, so a couple of options here. You can either just go ahead and leave this in its own loom and tape it up, or what I like to do is go ahead and feed it down the factory wire. You do that, I'm just going to come in here, I'm going to disconnect here and pull it out so I can run the wire through it. So with this disconnected, I'm just going to cut back this tape a little bit and run my wire through the inside of this. Now that I have this sleeve free, I can run my wires down through it. Now, the hard part's done, it's just connecting the final wires. We have our backup light, which will connect the tail light tap, green to green, and you're done, you're ready to go. These are for the chase lights, and we need to ground this. Right behind here, you'll find a ground screw right above the seatbelt tensioner in the 2-door or in the very back upper corner in your 4-door. All right, after connecting your backup light, we need to connect the ground wire. The ground wire will connect. So the final step is to wire up the chase lights. You have 2 chase lights on the rear. You can either wire them both together or independently. One option would be to leave one wired as a constant and the other one wired to our flasher module so that you can turn on either a constant chase or a flashing chase, or wire them both together to the flasher module or both to solid. It's really up to the customer's decision on how they want to wire it. What we're going to go through right now is I'm going to tell you just the basic wiring for the flasher module or without the flasher module. Depending on the vehicle you have, you may or may not have splitter switches. In that case, there are wires that come through that are ran to the rear of the vehicle through the upfitter system. Those are easily available to find on a YouTube channel or on Forbes website. So I'm not going to go through the process of taking that apart for you. But you can connect both of these to the same source or independently connect them. If you want to use our flasher module, you can still use the upfitter switches. You'll just connect the yellow wire to the light that you want flashing, and then you'll take your black wire and run it to ground. Now, for this, depending on the location and where you mount this in your options, you may need to put an extension piece of wire onto your ground lead. Your red lead will go to your power source or to the switch or upfitter switch wiring. And that's just as it shows in the instructions here. We have provided you with 3 butt splices to connect to your flasher module, and then a ring terminal so you can go ahead and connect the black wire to the ground. To access the dip switch positions, simply just pull this top cover off, orientate the writing so it's the same as this, and then change your dip switch settings. Make sure that if you're using the turn off road chase light, that you use one of the selections between 1 and 10 for LED and not the halogen selection.